It started with what seemed like a routine checkup. Robert, a 68-year-old retired teacher from Ohio, had done everything his doctor ever told him. He watched his cholesterol, took his statin, walked every morning, ate low-fat yogurt with fruit. His LDL, what they call the bad cholesterol, was in the normal range. He felt fine, until one Tuesday morning. He didn't. He was sitting at the breakfast table talking to his wife when he suddenly dropped his coffee mug. His words slurred. His right arm wouldn't move. Within minutes, he was in the back of an ambulance suffering a mild heart attack and possible mini-stroke. At the hospital, the cardiologist looked over his labs, then leaned in with a quiet voice and said something Robert never forgot. "You've been focused on the wrong number this whole time. Now pause for a moment. What if I told you that you too might be ignoring the #1 risk factor for stroke and heart attack in people over 60? A risk that doesn't always show up clearly on your blood test. A silent signal most doctors don't even mention. It's not your total cholesterol. It's not even your LDL. It's something hidden. Something that drives strokes and heart attacks, even when all your numbers look normal. And here's the truth. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to spot this hidden danger in your own lab results and what to do about it before it's too late. But first, we need to talk about the biggest myth in heart health that's still hurting millions of seniors today. Let's go back in time for a moment. Maybe 30, 40 years. You're sitting in your doctor's office. They look at your blood work, tap the paper, and say, "Your LDL is a little high. We need to bring that down." And so you nod. You follow the advice. Less red meat, more salad. Maybe you even start a medication, a statin. You've heard it 1,000 times. LDL is the bad cholesterol, and too much of it leads to clogged arteries, heart attacks, strokes. That message has become so familiar, so deeply ingrained, that it feels almost like a law of nature. High LDL equals danger. Keep it low and you're safe. But what if that's only half the story? What if despite decades of focusing on that one number, we've been missing the bigger picture? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. We've gotten better at treating heart attacks, but not at preventing them. Let me explain. Statins do lower LDL. They've become some of the most prescribed medications in the world. They've helped reduce the number of people dying from heart attacks. That's good. But the total number of people having heart attacks, it's not going down. In fact, in certain age groups especially, people over 60, it's rising. How can that be? If we've been so focused on lowering LDL, why are strokes and heart attacks still happening? A major study called the Accelerate trial tried to answer that. It tested a powerful new drug that slashed LDL cholesterol levels far more than traditional statins. It was a success on paper. LDL levels dropped dramatically. But guess what? It didn't reduce heart attacks or strokes. Not at all. That's not just surprising, it's unsettling. Imagine you've spent your life mopping up water from your kitchen floor, only to realize years later, the faucet was still running the whole time. Lowering LDL might be helping clean up part of the mess, but it may not be turning off the source of the problem. The reality is, LDL cholesterol is not all the same, and most blood tests only show you the total number without revealing what kind of LDL you actually have. That's a dangerous blind spot. So here's the real question. What's slipping through the cracks? What are we missing when we rely on total LDL alone? In the next section, we're going to reveal the hidden form of cholesterol that's far more dangerous than the kind you've been told to fear. It's smaller, it's faster, it's deadlier, and it may already be flowing through your bloodstream right now. So what exactly is this hidden danger in your blood? What's the real culprit that could be driving up your risk of stroke or heart attack, even if your LDL is normal? Let's talk about small, dense LDL particles. Now I know that may sound technical, but let's break it down into something simple. Imagine your arteries are like a highway, and LDL particles are the vehicles traveling down that road. Most of us have been taught that all LDL is bad. But here's the twist. Not all LDL particles are created equal. There are two types. The first type is large, fluffy LDL. Think of them like big, soft cotton balls or slow-moving delivery trucks. They're bulky, but they move gently through your bloodstream. They don't crash into the artery walls. They don't sneak into tiny crevices. In fact, they're not very dangerous at all. These are the ones that statin drugs are really good at lowering. Then there's the second type, the one you probably haven't heard much about. Small, dense LDL. These are the race cars. Tiny, fast, and slippery. They weave through your blood like they're in a high-speed chase. And they're the ones that cause wrecks. Why? Because their small size allows them to squeeze through the cracks in your artery walls. Once they get inside, they trigger inflammation. That inflammation leads to plaque buildup, what we call atherosclerosis. And when one of those plaques ruptures, it can block blood flow entirely, causing a stroke or a heart attack. Think about that. The most dangerous type of cholesterol in your blood might be the one your doctor isn't even testing for. And the numbers back it up. In a landmark study published in the journal Circulation, researchers found that people with high levels of small, dense LDL were 3.5 times more likely to suffer from cardiovascular disease, even if their total LDL was low. That's a 3.6 times greater risk hiding in plain sight. Another major study, the Jupiter trial, looked at patients taking statins whose total LDL was brought down to very low levels around 54. But here's the kicker. Those who still had high levels of small LDL particles remained at significant risk for heart attacks and strokes. In some cases, their risk was nearly as high as before they started medication. That's what we call the statin paradox. The drug lowers the number you see on your lab report, but not necessarily the number that matters most. And yet, the standard cholesterol panel you get after your annual checkup, it doesn't show this. It lumps all LDL together, large and small, safe and dangerous, into one single number. That's like counting all vehicles on the road without distinguishing between a minivan and a motorcycle going 150 miles per hour. Now here's where things get even more critical. You can't always predict whether you have a lot of small LDL particles just by looking at your LDL number. In fact, most people who have normal LDL levels still have a significant amount of small, dense LDL, especially as we get older, especially if we have other risk factors like weight gain, blood sugar issues, or a diet high in processed carbs. So let's recap. You could have a normal LDL number. You could be taking a statin. You could be eating a low-fat diet. And still, you might have dangerous cholesterol that's quietly damaging your arteries every single day. The good news, there's a way to find out, and an even better way to fix it. In the next section, we'll uncover the surprising root cause of these dangerous cholesterol particles and why cutting fat isn't the answer. So now we know the real danger isn't just how much LDL you have, it's what kind of LDL is floating in your blood. And the most dangerous kind, small dense LDL, is linked to something even more common, and even more overlooked. It's called insulin resistance. Now don't worry, I'm not going to throw a bunch of biology terms at you. Let's keep this simple. Your body runs on energy, right? And the fuel it uses most often is sugar glucose. Every time you eat, especially carbs and sweets, your body breaks that food down into glucose. That sugar travels through your blood to reach your cells where it's used for energy. But for that sugar to get inside your cells, it needs a key. That key is insulin. Insulin is a hormone made by your pancreas. It acts like a doorman unlocking the door so sugar can enter your cells and fuel your muscles, your brain, your heart. Now here's where the problem starts. As we age, especially if we eat a lot of processed food or sugary snacks, our locks start to rust. The insulin key doesn't work as well. Your cells don't respond like they used to. So your body makes more insulin trying to force the sugar in. That's insulin resistance. And guess what that extra insulin does? It signals your liver to start producing more triglycerides, a type of fat in your blood. And when triglycerides rise, they turn into, you guessed it, small dense LDL particles. So instead of burning clean fuel, your body becomes a factory for these dangerous artery-damaging race cars. Not because of fat, not because of red meat, but because of sugar and refined carbohydrates. Let that sink in for a moment. You may have spent years avoiding butter-skipping steak, choosing low-fat everything, only to end up increasing your risk of a heart attack or stroke because of the added sugars in your healthy yogurt, your granola bars, your morning toast. That's the real trap. And here's the part that hits home. Insulin resistance doesn't usually come with symptoms. No pain, no dizziness, no warning signs. You can be developing it quietly for years, decades even, until one day you're sitting at the breakfast table and your right hand won't move, or your speech slurs, or your heart starts racing for no reason. Sound familiar? It should. Because insulin resistance has been found in up to 88% of American adults, over 50 in some studies. That's nearly 9 out of 10 of us living with the root cause of dangerous cholesterol, and not even knowing it. The Lyon Diet Heart Study proved this beautifully. They followed heart attack survivors who didn't just lower fat, they ate more real food, especially in the Mediterranean style. Olive oil, fish, vegetables, nuts. And the results? A 70% reduction in second heart attacks without cutting cholesterol nearly as much as statins do. Because what they really cut was inflammation, insulin resistance, sugar overload. So the question becomes, are we finally ready to stop blaming fat for what sugar has been doing all along? In the next section, I'll show you how to read your own lab report like a heart expert. You'll learn how to spot signs of insulin resistance before it leads to a heart attack or stroke. All from 2 numbers your doctor may already be testing, but not fully explaining. So now that you understand the true root of the problem, insulin resistance, it's time to ask, how can you tell if it's happening inside your body? The answer might already be in your hands. You don't need a fancy new test. You don't need a specialist. All you need is to look at your standard cholesterol panel, the same one your doctor probably runs every year. But this time, you're not going to look at your total cholesterol. You're not even going to start with LDL. Instead, I want you to look at 2 numbers, your triglycerides and your HDL cholesterol. That's the good kind. Let's break this down. Triglycerides are a type of fat floating in your blood. They store unused calories and deliver energy when needed. But when insulin resistance kicks in, your body starts pumping out more and more triglycerides, turning your blood into a breeding ground for small, dense LDL particles. HDL, on the other hand, is like the cleanup crew. It helps sweep excess cholesterol out of your arteries and carries it back to your liver for disposal. The higher your HDL, the better your system is at cleaning up the mess. Now here's the real magic. When you divide your triglycerides by your HDL, you get one of the most powerful predictors of heart attack and stroke risk, especially in adults over 60. It's called the TG-HDL ratio. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine your triglycerides are 180 and your HDL is 40. Divide 180 by 40 and your ratio is 4.5. That's high, and it's a red flag. A large American study found that when this ratio is elevated, the risk of ischemic heart disease rises by more than 2.2 times. That's higher than the risk linked to total LDL alone. So what should your numbers look like? Here's a quick guide. Triglycerides, ideally under 100 mg/dl, over 150. That's a warning sign. HDL, for men aim for over 40. For women over 50, the higher the better. TGA-HDL ratio. For Caucasian adults, over 2.5 equals high risk. For African Americans, over 1.5 equals high risk. These numbers aren't perfect, but they're incredibly useful. They give you a real, honest snapshot of your metabolic health without needing to guess. And here's the kicker. Many doctors don't talk about this ratio. Why? Sometimes it's lack of training. Sometimes it's because the system is still focused on lowering total LDL, even though that number alone can be misleading. But you don't have to wait. You don't have to be surprised. You can take control today. Look at your most recent cholesterol panel. Find your triglycerides. Find your HDL. Do the math. And if your numbers raise concern, don't panic. Because in the next part, we'll walk step by step through the lifestyle changes that reverse insulin resistance, lower those small LDLs, and reduce your risk of a heart attack or stroke without needing another prescription. Let's take a deep breath. You've made it this far, and now you know something most people your age don't. You've uncovered the hidden link between insulin-resistant small LDL particles and the rising risk of stroke and heart attack. But now comes the most important question of all. What can you do about it? Here's the good news. It's not complicated. You don't need a new medication. You don't need to starve yourself or go vegan overnight. You don't even need to join a gym. You just need to make a few powerful changes to your everyday habits, changes that your heart, your brain, and your body will thank you for. Let's start with the most critical one. 1. Cut back on added sugar and refined carbs. I know it's not easy. Sugar is everywhere, hidden in sauces, snacks, even so-called healthy foods. But make no mistake, sugar is the gasoline fueling insulin resistance and small LDL particles. You don't have to eliminate every carb, but start with the worst offenders: soda-packaged snacks, white bread pastries. Choose real whole foods. Cook at home more often. Read the labels. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 25 grams of added sugar per day for adults. That's about 6 teaspoons. Most Americans consume more than double that every single day. If you can reduce that sugar load, you'll start to feel the difference in a matter of weeks. More energy, less brain fog, fewer blood sugar crashes. 2. Eat more anti-inflammatory heart protective fats. Yes, I said fats. Real fats. Good fats. The kind found in wild-caught salmon sardines, walnuts, flax seeds, extra virgin olive oil. These are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, which have been shown to lower triglycerides, reduce inflammation, and even shrink the size and number of small LDL particles. A study published in Nutrients found that older adults supplementing with omega-3s saw a 20–30% reduction in triglyceride levels within a few months. So don't fear the fat, fear the processed oils. That leads us to the next step. 3. Eliminate trans fats and be careful with vegetable oils. Trans fats are like glue in your arteries. They raise bad cholesterol, lower good cholesterol, and trigger inflammation. You'll find them in fried foods, processed snacks, margarine, and anything with partially hydrogenated oil on the label. Even some common cooking oils like corn, soybean, or sunflower oil can become harmful when heated too high. When they smoke in the pan, they turn into oxidized fats, which can cause damage inside your body. If you're cooking at high heat, go for avocado oil, olive oil, or even a little grass-fed butter. 4. Move your body every day. You don't need to run marathons. You don't need to lift weights at the gym. But you do need to move your body because movement is medicine. A brisk 30-minute walk each day can increase your HDL, lower your triglycerides, reduce your blood sugar, and even improve how well your cells respond to insulin. Think of movement as flushing your bloodstream. It keeps everything flowing, clearing out the buildup before it becomes dangerous. Chart 5. Prioritize sleep and stress management. Yes, even sleep plays a role. Poor sleep raises cortisol, your stress hormone, and cortisol increases insulin resistance. Chronic stress does the same thing. Practice winding down before bed. Turn off bright lights. Avoid late-night snacks. And find time each day for something calming, whether it's prayer, deep breathing, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea. Your heart isn't just a pump. It responds to how you live, how you rest, how you feel. 6. Follow the Mediterranean way your way. The best long-term strategy isn't a fad diet. It's a lifestyle built around whole, colorful, anti-inflammatory foods. That's the secret behind the Mediterranean diet, rich in vegetables, legumes, olive oil, seafood, herbs, and yes, even the occasional glass of red wine. It's not low-fat. It's not about counting every calorie. It's about choosing real food that works with your body, not against it. The Lyon Diet Heart Study showed that patients following this style of eating had a 70% lower risk of recurrent heart attacks compared to those eating a standard low-fat diet. Why? Because they weren't just treating cholesterol. They were calming inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, nourishing their blood vessels. So here's your roadmap. Cut sugar. Eat clean, healthy fats. Avoid industrial oils and trans fats. Move every day. Sleep deeply. Choose real food. Simple steps. Big results. In the final part of this video, we'll show you how to tie it all together, how to stay on this path for the long haul, and how to recognize the next early signs before a stroke or heart attack ever arrives. Stay with me. You're almost there. So here we are. You started this video with one question. What am I missing when it comes to protecting my heart and brain? Now you know that lowering your LDL isn't enough. You know about the hidden danger of small, dense LDL. You've seen how insulin resistance driven by sugar and stress can quietly raise your risk for heart attacks and strokes, even if your numbers look normal. And most importantly, you now know what to do about it. This isn't about fear. It's about freedom. Freedom from the idea that aging must come with decline. Freedom from silent threats that were never explained to you. Freedom to take back control, one habit, one meal, one walk at a time. If this video gave you clarity, hope, or even just one aha moment, then I invite you to take the next step. Hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning. In our next video, we're going deeper. We'll reveal the 10 early warning signs of stroke and heart attack, especially the ones that happen quietly without chest pain, without slurred speech, and without any dramatic collapse. These are the signs most people ignore, until it's too late. But you won't, because now you're informed. You're prepared. If you know someone over 60, a parent, a spouse, a friend, share this video with them. It might be the most important 20 minutes they watch all year. Stay strong, stay curious, and most of all, stay connected to your health, to your heart, to the years ahead that are still full of life, full of joy, and full of possibility. Thank you for watching.